Father, Daddy, Papa. These are special words. And on this weekend, Father's Day weekend, it's important for us to express meaning to those words. On Austin Faith Dialogue, we invite you to be with us because we're going to talk about successful fathering.
Austin Faith Dialogue, at the crossroads of religion and life. A series highlighting the cultural and social interactions between the worshiping and religious communities in and around the capital city. Austin Faith Dialogue is brought to you by the Austin Metropolitan Ministries in cooperation with KXAN. Join us now in Austin Faith Dialogue.
Welcome to Austin Faith Dialogue. I'm Carl Gronberg, host for the program, and thank you for being with us. At the top of the program, I mentioned those words, Father, Papa, Daddy. Those are important words in our society. They convey all types of, spiritual images and mental images for all of us. And today we're going to talk with some people who can maybe dialogue with us about what it means to be in relationship with a father. Lauren Morgan is a student at the University of Texas, and she has a father who's important in her life. And Alfonso Rincon is with us, and he is with the Center for Successful Fathering. Welcome, Lauren, Alfonso. Welcome to Austin Faith Dialogue.
Glad to be here.
Tell me about it. What about the Center for Successful Fathering?
Well, the Center for Successful Fathering is a 501c3 nonprofit organization founded in Austin in 1995 by Dr. Ron Klinger, a psychologist who had a family practice and noticed in the early 90s that there were some very big changes taking place before his very eyes in the way families were in many ways falling apart, namely that who was returning to his office were the moms and the kids, but not the father. And so he began to wonder, where are the dads? Aren't there any dads anymore? And that began a process that continues to this day, now nearly 10 years later. And in that time, he has interviewed fathers, spoken to a lot of kids, and developed a curriculum called Accepting the Challenges of Fatherhood, which we are now implementing in the schools.
And the center then works mainly with schools and tries to work through the school?
Yes. Most of our work is with schools. What we have done is we kicked off our training of parent educators and professionals and school staff in the fall of 1998 on the heels of a conference in Houston, Texas, which was co-sponsored by the Texas Education Agency and the Office of the Attorney General as well as the CSF. And then we began to use the infrastructure of the Texas Education Agency to work through its regional education service centers where we're then access school districts and local campuses.
But the Center for Successful Fathering is not just limited to schools. You work with any institutions?
We'll work with any institution, any agency, community group, or school, church that works with fathers and wants to get their fathers engaged with their children.
Fathers are important, right, Alfonso?
Yes.
Why?
I think the best way to frame that question is to start out with a very basic image, and that is of a naked, helpless child. That's the way we're all born. And then the context in which that child is born, and that is a real world that is full of a variety of things, whether it's danger, whether it's opportunities. The thing is that a helpless, naked child doesn't have the skills or the ability to survive in that world. Mm-hmm. Then every child that was born also has two persons involved for that child to even take place to begin with, and that's the father and the mother, who also happen to be, by virtue of having lived long enough to bear children, somewhat of experts at what it takes to survive in the real world. And so it takes about 17, 18 years for children to grow, to become able to survive on their own. And the other very important thing that we have to remember is that every father, like every mother, is mortal. Someday that father is not going to be around, and that mother is not going to be around. And so if the father has not succeeded in helping that child develop and grow to be able to survive on its own, then that child is still going to be helpless because that real world is going to stay there. It's not going to go away just because daddy dies. Mm-hmm. It's still going to be there. And so that child needs to have those skills and the ability to cope and survive and flourish in that real world.
Lauren, I hear Alfonso, and I'm not sure what you heard him say, but I heard him say, Lauren, that a father is important because, first of all, he provides some type of safety, protection for a child. And then I heard Alfonso say a father is important because he can nurture and has a responsibility to nurture and prepare a child. some skills, Lauren, you know, some
Definitely.
skills for life. What about your experience with Father?
I found that my father has done that for me in many ways. He's influenced me in every aspect of my life. Just every major step that I've taken, I can look back and I can thank him for different skills and just things that he's taught me. That's
Is it
very
possible
important.
for a young person like yourself? Now, Alfonso, you told me before we came on the air that you said your dad died when you were in 8th grade or 9th grade? Is
The
that
summer between my 8th and 9th grade, actually. Yes.
And because, so you know about the mortality of a father.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Very much so.
You also can know, Lauren, about the humanity of a father. When we talk on this program, we're talking about the importance of having fathers in our lives, and we get all these images coming. But fathers are mortal, as you pointed out, but they're also very human. Is that something you find comfortable as being a young person, that of the humanity of your father?
It's wonderful. You don't realize it when you're younger, but I think the most important thing with my father was the contact that we've always shared. It's always been there. He's always been one to turn to and look for and in major life decisions. And it's wonderful. It's, you know, we talk about you know, playing with kids and just needing the contact, and then the emotions fall into that, and it's
Yeah, you
It's
mentioned,
nice.
Alfonso, about, before we went on the air, we were talking about the importance of a father playing, as Lauren mentioned, playing with the children, but also the importance of a father being present. Talk a little bit more about what does that mean to be present with your children?
Well, it means to be physically there. The fathers, both fathers and mothers are very powerful teachers. Fathers have a very unique role in being teaching through role modeling. And so that's very important. And you cannot role model if you're absent. The other thing is that if the father is going to have credibility, if he's going to be saying things but doesn't act them out, then the teaching is not going to be very credible. So, but if you're physically there and you interact, then the child begins to trust in you, and which is very important. You're credible then, that what you role model and what you say, your word has meaning. It has implications. And what you're also doing then is teaching the child a lot about the world, which includes dealing with those situations in which the father shows his limitations. And that's how a child begins to learn through the father, this big, strong man, that there is such a thing as needing to be patient when things don't work out right, that there is such a thing as learning how to forgive when you've made a mistake, and to be able to admit you've made a mistake, or that you weren't as good at something as you could have been, and how you accept failure and how you deal with failure and you bounce back and keep going, because that's just the way life is. And so it is precisely through his clayness, so to speak, that a father is a powerful teacher. But if a child doesn't feel that clay, then he's not going to know that clay.
Do you know what he means by clayness? When you hear him talk about a father being clay, what does that mean to you, Lauren?
I can picture, I guess, many different emotions that I've seen from my father, and they have had effect on how I act in different situations. And some are good, some are bad, but
I wonder,
they're-
as a beautiful young woman, your father's role in your life, does that affect the way you look at the opposite sex?
Yes, I find myself looking for major qualities that my dad has, because I feel safe and I feel secure, and there's that support system, and not only my father but grandfather, who I'm very close with, and things like that. So yeah,
You are your
I
grandfather
am.
and father.
I feel very blessed.
Alfonso, as you look at Lauren and you listen to what she says, what does it say to you?
Well, it says a lot, because, and this is why we emphasize that our work not be thought of as only of something about fathers being connected to boys. There's a very powerful role that fathers play in the lives of girls. They are the representative of the opposite sex for girls, and they are the ones, again, who can be a very credible teacher about what are the standards that a young lady has for might be a partner or a male friend. And the father is the one that has a lot to do to imprint those healthy kinds of expectations, that self-esteem that says, I will not do certain things, or I will not accept certain kinds of behavior, and if you're going to be that way, then I'm going to go on to somewhere else. Which is why young ladies and girls who are connected to their fathers are not likely to get raped as much. They are not likely to put up with abusive relationships. They are not even as likely to get pregnant out of wedlock, because they have something that's very, very important. the approval of an adult male.
You used a buzzword, self-esteem. Lauren, I think you have lots of self-esteem. Self-esteem comes from what I hear Alfonso saying, from this relationship with parents, and particularly in the relationship with a father. All the fathers watching this program, I hope there's something's going off in their minds and their hearts saying, I can have this impact upon my daughter, upon my son, so that they can have that type of self-esteem.
Let me comment on the word protection. Mothers are very, very important. Mothers are great rule makers, and their protection is very much concerned with the physical safety of a child. And what we need to underscore for fathers that are listening is that fathers are a tremendous asset in the self-protectiveness of a child's being. Self-protectiveness.
Right.
And again, I just want to underscore that because a lot of times people get confused. They'll say, well, a mom can be a teacher or dad can be a teacher. Yes, that's true. But moms and dads do things differently. The same word, but they perform it differently, so to speak.
There are those who are successful fathers. Is that correct?
Sure.
You believe in that?
Sure I do.
Yeah. What would you say to your father on Father's Day? What would you like to tell him?
I'd thank him for everything that he's done for me. It's a blessing that he has been there for everything through school, through sports, and especially teaching these just these life lessons that you need to know, and especially the self-protection, where I do look out for myself, and a lot of things that I have learned from him have helped.
The word that comes to me is value. You value yourself. And it seems to me that's one of the most important spiritual lessons that we can learn. And on Austin Faith Dialogue, we're talking about the community of faith throughout our area. And I think this is a very valuable lesson. Alfonso, the Center for Successful Fathering, tell our viewing just a little bit about that. Where are you located?
Our offices are located at 13740 Research Boulevard, which is close to the intersection of 620 and Research Boulevard, or Highway 183. And we also call it the national office because we are now going all over the country.
But you really started in Texas, right?
Yes, this is, in fact, Texas is in a certain sense teeming with fatherhood activity. But what we have is a curriculum that has been developed here in Texas. And it was piloted just north of here in the Round Rock area. And so that's very exciting that what was once a very local effort by a psychologist to try to answer the question, where are the dads? And by interviewing hundreds of children from this area who shared with him what they thought a good dad was, is that laid the foundation for a work that is now spreading all over Texas and the country.
You have a word that is spreading, and Alfonso, you've got spirit, you've got passion, you have commitment, and we thank you for being Austin Faith Dialogue. Lauren, thanks for being with us. And for all of you, stay with us because you're going to meet some, well, I call them successful fathers. And you're going to meet an interesting woman who's involved in lifting up the role of fathers with their children. Please stay with us on Austin Faith Dialogue. Back to Austin Faith Dialogue. As I mentioned at the top of the program, my name is Carl Gronberg, and I'm host for the program, and we're talking about dads. We're talking about fathers, and we had an exciting first part of the program as we delineated what it means to be successful fathers, and I want you to meet a couple who I think are successful fathers. lovely lady between them who's going to help them define even more what it means to be successful fathers. Jeff Greinert, glad to have you here. Thanks for coming. Mona Gonzalez, thank you. You're from River City Youth Foundation, is that correct?
Correct.
We're glad you're here. And Michael Milicia, welcome. Glad to have you here, Michael. Thanks for being successful father that you are. Yeah, nice to have the three of you here. Well, it's exciting to be a dad, right?
Yes, it is.
Jeff, tell a little bit about your family, would you please?
Yeah, I have a wonderful wife and two little boys, ages 4 and 8,
What are their names?
Jacob and Thomas
And your wife's name is?
Lally.
That's important. They may be watching this program. They want to hear their names,
They
right?
might watch it. Yeah.
Right.
And I'm a longtime Austinite. I grew up here. My dad was a great example when I was growing up, and my grandparents, both sets of grandparents, are from this area also. Mm-hmm. So I just have a lot of history here.
And a commitment to the whole concept of family and being a father, right?
That's right.
And Michael, how about yourself? Talk a little bit about your family.
Well, my wife Terry and I've got 2 children, Stephen, who just turned 3, and Lindsay, who's about 2 months old now.
Are you excited about being a father?
Very.
Are you scared?
It's a little scary. Yeah.
And Mona, you deal with fathers. You deal with people at River City Youth Foundation. Mm-hmm. What are some of the dreams and the hopes that children have about a father?
I think, by and large, children want to be around their dads. They want to have access to their dads and spend time with them and have dads spend time with them and in doing fun things. This is what I hear all the time. Mm-hmm. So I think that's the dream is I have a dad, I want him to be with me more often, and I want to do fun things.
Alfonso was telling us in the first part of the program about how important it is for fathers to play with their children. Now, I have a marvelous dad. He's 90 years old this year, and we've been doing a lot of reflecting. We had a big party for him out in Seattle for his 90th birthday. But my dad was of that generation that didn't have a lot of time to play. You know, he had to work, a lot of work. How about you, Jeff? Do you play with your kids? And maybe if you do play with them, what are some of the things you do? And I bet we can even put up a picture on the screen of Jeff, and you can maybe tell us about what you and your children were doing.
Me and my boys, we just have a great time. During the week, I don't get nearly enough time with them. My job, I usually have a 2-hour chunk at the end of the day between 6 o'clock and 8 o'clock, the bedtime, to play with them. But we just have a great time. I recently taught them how to ride a skateboard. I have my skateboard from when I was a kid, and I just
You didn't crash?
well, only once.
You ride a skateboard, you crash.
That's how you ride a skateboard. And we just do a lot of things together. You know, for me, the 2 hours that I have during the week in the evenings, that's me and my boys, you know, and my wife too. But I mean, it's not just a me and my wife time. It's not a me and Lally time. It's a me and the boys time.
And you can do some playing together, some talking, conversation. Do the boys like to talk?
Yeah, they do.
Yeah. Like to discuss things with their dad? Mm-hmm. Mona, does that kind of jive with what you think as you deal with the youth and the River City Youth Foundation? Do they like to do that kind of thing?
Absolutely. I think that they long to have that role model around them at the critical times especially. It's important to be playing with them on a regular basis, but I think also from just really listen to what the kids want, it's important to have your dad there. The young woman earlier, she mentioned how thankful she is that her dad has been there at the important times, helping her to make life decisions and life-impacting decisions. It's I think our kids need to have their dads there when those decisions are a matter of quality life or non-quality life.
And have the dad there to listen, right? Not just to pontificate, not just to preach. Huh? That's typical or difficult for a preacher type not to do that, but to listen, I think.
I think to be present, to be there, to understand or seek to understand what is going on with his child. And I think the children are certainly willing to share their hearts with their dads. I think patterns are established early on in the relationship between father and son or father and daughter, as they are with all of us. And I think that if the father can encourage that kind of open discussion with him, I think it'll go a long way because the children are really wanting to share their heart with their dads.
Michael, I think of you and I think about the pictures that I've seen of you and times I've been in your home when you've been holding your children. And I think we have a picture with you and your son that we'd like to put up on the screen. But talk about your dad. You had an amazing dad, Michael.
Yeah, my dad raised 9 children, and
What was his ethnic background?
he was Italian.
Italian,
Yeah.
yeah.
And he worked a lot, 16 hours a day, so we didn't see much of him, but we did play ball, and he was always there, never missed a ball game.
What did you learn from your dad about being a father, Michael?
The dad has to always be there. I mean, just respect. I mean, you've got to bond with your child.
Was your dad tough?
No, not really. No, I never, seen my dad as being tough. He was strict, but not.
He had expectations for you?
Yeah, he did. He wanted us to go on to college and be successful.
Mm-hmm. Mona, I hear Michael talking about successfulness, being a success the father wants, also the father being strict. I hear Michael talking about his dad expecting certain things. How does that go along with what you found out and your discovery of working with children? Is it true? Is that right? Is that what parents have for their children, to offer to their children?
I think absolutely. This week we have been gathering the essays that are being provided to us by the children at our center and others that are participating in our upcoming Father's Day picnic, and we're going to have an essay contest. So the kids get a chance to answer the question, what does a super dad look like to me? And before leaving, I grabbed one of the essays, and I'd like to respond to your question with this essay.
Please.
This is a child, and he's about, I think, 11 years old. And this is what he says. He says, "My dad is the greatest in the world. My dad is the greatest father I can ever have because he is always there for me.
Wow.
He gives me things when I need them." And it says, he takes me places, and he's taught me right from wrong. The time he was really there for me was when my sister had died, and he was sharing my mom's personal feelings. That is why my dad is the greatest in the world.
Do you know this child?
Mm-hmm.
So you know the child's story.
Yes, and this is a child that if you were just to speak with a child, he might not say very much, but he has the gift of being able to express himself in writing. And so he's been able to share quite a bit about his
It's a marvelous
expectations about his dad, what he values in that relationship.
Speaking of that, Jeff, what about the relationship with your dad? What did you learn about being a father? And this whole idea of being a successful father or a super father, what did you learn from that relationship with your father?
My dad was, he was always there. He worked a lot of hours, some when I was young, but he was always there when we needed him. He was a constant part of my life. For me, being a dad just seems so easy. It's natural. I don't even have to think about it. It's fun, and I love it because of the good example I had from my dad.
Kind of unconditional love that your father gave affirmed you, is that what you're saying?
Yeah,
Now
yeah.
How many siblings do you have?
I have two brothers.
Are the oldest?
Uh-huh.
Okay. And did father rely some on you, do you think, as the oldest child?
Oh yeah, there's always the there's always the classic. You're the oldest, so you should know better.
Right.
Uh-huh. But yeah,
a line that dads have used in the past and continue to use.
that's right. And I'm starting to use on my son, so it continues.
And that's kind of that expectation level. Michael, how about with you and your dad? How many siblings? You had big family.
Oh yeah, we had a big family, large, 5 brothers, 4 sisters.
Uh-huh.
And
where did you fit in that?
I was the second to the youngest.
And what did you learn from your dad that you would like to use for your son and for your daughter?
Well, I would like to pass on to my son that my dad taught me was to be responsible, to share, to help others.
Your dad Italian, your mother Hispanic, right? And that must have been a fascinating home. Just think of the food you must have had.
Yeah.
Great food, huh?
Yeah, my dad did most of the cooking.
Oh, wow. Do you do cooking?
Some.
Yeah?
My wife does a lot of the cooking.
Yeah, but you married a Swede, so she
Oh,
does
yeah.
good cooking. Yeah. Mona, what about this? What do you think as you're listening to these two, I think, super dads? What do you think about that whole process of what it means? What about a person who's watching the program and says, man, I'm not like old Michael or Jeff. I'm feeling kind of down on myself. What would you say, Mona, to a father like that? What can a father do to make himself be more responsible?
Well, I think a father can do what he is asking the child to do, and that is to become more aware, more educated, more informed about, in this case, about being a more effective father, a more successful father. There is always hope for improvement. I see that every single day. There is no such thing as, an impossibility. When you truly desire in your heart to succeed, you're going to do it. You're going to find a way. And what I have seen is, after interviewing so many dads, especially at these picnics that we do annually, the desire of a father, just as with a mother, is out of love for this child, this beautiful, beautiful creation. Mm-hmm. The value is there for the child. I've never questioned that. But the desire to be the most effective parent, the most effective father in this case, it's there, and it's very deep. I have actually been in the presence of men who, because we serve a very high-risk neighborhood, and so I've come across some men in our neighborhood who had been to jail and had not been the most ideal father figures and father role models. And they're very remorseful about that. Mm-hmm. And they don't want their children to go through that. And I've been in the presence of these men who actually tear up as they're telling you their story and how much they want to change things and how much they want to change personally so that the child is spared that type of lifestyle. Mm-hmm. But where do they turn? And that's always the question. But once they ask the question, the answer, of course, is wonderful programs like Alphonse's program that he described earlier, and our program is there to help
River City Youth Foundation.
Throughout the community. We are so blessed in Austin.
We are
do
blessed.
have them.
And we're blessed to have you, and we're blessed to have in the Austin community fathers like you, Jeff, and like you, Michael. And we're blessed to have fathers like you in our Austin Faith Dialogue viewing audience. And we invite you, we challenge you, and we encourage you to claim that title, that relationship, the privilege of being a father in relationship with your children. You have a great task in front of you. Peace be with you. Thank you for watching Austin Faith Dialogue.